I call the order of the meeting of the Verona Common Council for Monday, April 27th, 2026 at 7 p.m. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, we'll have the roll.
Elke.
Here.
Weiss. Here. Lytle.
Here.
Tucker Long.
Here.
Hernandez.
Here.
Swanson.
Present.
Hoaxed.
Present.
And Harrison. Here. All present, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent. That is enough for quorum, so we can proceed. We will move on to item 4, which is public comment. If any members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Good evening, elders. If you have not, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Patrick Anderson, the EMS chief here for Fitrona EMS. And just wanted to thank you for offering me a chance to share my opinion this evening for the Verona City Council involvement in the fire and EMS feasibility study.
One sec. Sorry, Chief. That's the one.
Just gonna make me talk faster as the clock is ticking away there.
I didn't kill everything, but I almost.
It's all right. I'll just talk quicker. I do want to share. I will keep my comments short. I believe Mr. Small is gonna cover a lot of what I would talk about this evening. But so when the topic of participating in regionalization talks came to the council a few months ago, there was an overwhelming comments and voices from the elders that said they wanted more information before deciding this plan was a good fit for Verona. And I would like to share that I believe involvement in this study will answer those questions. Your vote tonight does not commit you to this new district. It answers your questions. What it does, it includes the city of Verona in what a future fire and EMS district may look like. A plan that includes personnel, stations, apparatus, shared responses, and collaborative training. All things that will come from the implementation study that will provide you, the representatives of the residents of Verona, with reliable and unbiased information to make an informed decision on whether or not regionalization is the best fit for the city. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any other members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Hi, I am Kate Browski. I live on Zing Drive, and one of your agenda items tonight is voting on being able to put a four-way stop on the intersection of Dunhill and Zing. I'm a concerned parent for the safety of kids, being able to cross the streets between crossing Zing. With the way the road is set up, it is there is a steep hill right before it. It's a very wide road. People tend to drive very, very quickly on it. And I myself have had 2 close calls with my son going down our driveway into traffic. It's not a hugely busy area, but when there is traffic at the busy hours, that's when we tend to see cars speeding quite quickly. And with the new development, where I'm assuming traffic will continue to increase. Also at that intersection is a bus stop. Any kids traveling from the other side of the street have to cross it to go to the only bus stop in our neighborhood, as well as the only park in our neighborhood for kids to go to. If they live on the west side of Zing, they have to cross it to go to the only park in the neighborhood. So I just ask you to consider that, where I know it doesn't always meet the standards for the DOT if a stop sign is needed, but being able to consider those other action items or those other items to consider putting that stop sign in place.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any other members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so.
Good evening. My name is Pete Friedrichs. I'm the Secretary Treasurer of Firefighters Local 311. For those that don't know much about 311, we represent 570 2 members of firefighters and paramedics from across the county, including right here in Verona, and as it relates to the discussion tonight in terms of regionalization, Fitchburg Fire, Fitch-Verona EMS, and other communities, including McFarland, Oregon. We have existed as an organization for about 100 years, mostly representing in that time Madison Fire. In the last 30 years or so, we've started to, we organized affiliate departments, affiliate fire and EMS departments across the county. And in the last 30 years, we've had a lot of different discussions about different models for regionalization, for mergers, for different things. So this is not the first time this has come up. And in all of those situations, as an organization, we sort of have a generally supportive and watchful eye on what's happening, because we have general optimism towards what the opportunities can be in those situations, but also recognize what the pitfalls can be. And there are a lot of pitfalls that can come along the way, which we recognize. But in all those cases, we've always had a voice at the table, and when we didn't, we made sure our voice was heard in those situations. And we do have a loud voice sometimes. But in this case, we were invited to have a seat at the table very early by the group of municipal leaders that are involved in these discussions, to make sure that our concerns are recognized and heard, and the concerns of our members are heard and accounted for in any planning and any ideas that go forward. What we do as an organization is we represent our members and work to maintain and enhance their hours, wages, working conditions, and retirement security. Those are our 4 tenets of what we do. We also work to make sure that our communities are providing the safe staffing we need when we go out the door, proper equipment and safe equipment that they ride on, stations that they can, habitate and be somewhat comfortable and safe in, and having proper responses, the right equipment in the right places. During these discussions, we have been given assurances that those things will be maintained or improved in terms of the hours, wages, and working conditions for our members doing the job on a day-to-day basis, that no one's going to lose a job, no one's going to lose pay, and if anything, their pay, their hours, their benefits will improve, and also efficiencies in and improve responses to our communities with the efficiencies that are found in the process. There's a lot of opportunities from that we've been, part of these discussions, from the cost saving on admin positions, which maybe the chiefs in the room won't like to hear, but or different positions as different people might be phased out but not fired, I guess I'll say. But the efficiencies in equipment, supply ordering, and also the efficiencies in rig placement and service delivery. There's also I'm sure you're well versed in, probably better than I am, in the Innovation Fund, Innovation Grant from the state, and the amount of money that can bring in. If you want to talk to the people from Wauwatosa and West Dallas about the opportunity that brings in, something that our parent organization, the Professional Firefighters of Wisconsin, actually lobbied on behalf of to have it included in Act 12 a few years ago. So generally, in these situations, we have a watchful eye towards the proceedings. We hear the concerns. I think you've heard concerns from our own members on this and what those pitfalls can be. But we're grateful to have a voice in the room. And generally, we think a study to see what the opportunities are, see what's possible for Verona and the surrounding communities is warranted, and something that we definitely won't stand against and are generally supportive of. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. We are still in public comment, so if any other members of the public wish to speak, now would be the time to do so. Seeing no one else approaching the table, we will move on to item 5, which is approval of the minutes from the April 13th, 2026 Common Council meeting. Questions, comments, corrections, or motions to approve? Alder Tucker-Long.
I move to approve the Common Council minutes with the correction of the third item is missing an L in roll.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Humke, and then there's a question from. Okay. We'll just start adding L's to that item until it looks right. Okay. Motion before the body. Any other corrections? See no further corrections. All those in favor of approving the minutes from the April 13th, 2026 Common Council meeting with the correction noted signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And the minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 6, which is mayor's business. First up, we have 6A, which is the Municipal Clerk Appreciation Week proclamation, which I will read to you now. Whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk, a time-honored and vital part of local government, exists throughout the world, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk is the oldest among public servants, and whereas the office of the professional municipal clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels, and whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful of their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all, and whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community, and whereas the professional municipal clerks administer essential election administration that is essential for our democracy, and now therefore I, Luke Diaz, Mayor of the City of Verona, do recognize the week of May 3rd through the 9th, 2026 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to our professional municipal clerks, Holly Licht and Deputy Kayla Truman, and to all professional municipal clerks for the vital service they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. And if I can just add, I really want to thank Clerk Licht, who's sitting right there in the front row, and she's done a phenomenal job, and not just with the election stuff and the stuff people think about, but some of the quiet day-to-day running of the city. If you're not thinking too hard about municipal government, that means things are going well, and Clerk Licht is a part of that. So if you would, I would like to present it to you as long as you're here after I sign it.
One, two, three. Perfect. Very good. Speech, speech.
Okay, we will move on to 6B, which is the International Firefighters Day Proclamation, which I will also read. Whereas International Firefighters Day is observed every year on May 4th to honor firefighters who have dedicated their lives to the protection of life and property, and whereas firefighters selflessly devote their professional and volunteer lives in service to a purpose that comes with a physical and mental toll, including the potential loss of life, to protect their communities, and whereas we thank current firefighters for their dedication to protecting the public, and whereas we also remember past firefighters and those who have died in the line of duty serving their communities, and whereas we recognize and show gratitude to all Verona Fire Department firefighters for their bravery and sacrifice in protecting our homes, properties, and the lives of those we love, now therefore I, Luke Diaz, Mayor of the City of Verona, do hereby proclaim May 4th, 2026 as Firefighter Day in the City of Verona. And if I could add, I really want to thank everyone who's worked really hard. Again, this is another city service that a lot of times people don't think about until they're in an emergency, and then they're going to need someone there instantly, and the Verona Fire Department has answered the call. So thank you. And I would really love to get a photo since I'm seeing a lot of hats and uniforms in the audience, and present this to the interim fire chief as well.
We need a group photo. Yeah. Good luck with that. I'm not in uniform. I can't.
No, we're good.
All right. 1, 2. Say cheese. Awesome job.
And with that, we'll move on to 6C, which is a presentation by James Small, the Rural EMS Outreach Program Manager from the University of Wisconsin School of Medicine and Public Health, Wisconsin of Office Rural Health. Take it away.
Well, thank you for having me here. And this is Hawk. Hawk is my PTSD service dog. He comes from Custom Canines right here in Madison. So you probably see their dogs around quite a bit. You might know his brother Ace, who does the honor flights all the time. If you've seen him on the social media and stuff, so that's his brother from the same litter. But when I got a request to come to your meeting tonight because you're considering potentially potentially reviewing, I guess is the right way to describe that at this point, if you should be part of a consolidation. It's kind of a unique ask for me. So what my job is, I work on reliability and sustainability of EMS systems in the state. So provide some of that subject matter expertise to, is he escaping on me? To the local governments, because this is a really complicated space to navigate. And then you add fire to it and you add consolidations and stuff, it becomes very, very overwhelming very quickly. Because when you chose to be on the ballot and get elected, you thought, I'm going to come here and help my community. You didn't know you were going to need to be an expert in organizational system design and things like that. And most of you probably aren't. So usually when I walk into these rooms, they're having some kind of a disaster or imminently having a disaster, which is kind of unique because you have very well operating systems. It's just, should you become part of something bigger and share some of that cost and share some of that governance and so on. So I put together this document that you all have in front of you to try to navigate some of those spaces. Just things to think about as you go through and start reviewing what direction you might want to go in. You know, are you prepared to give up some of that control that you have? Right now, you have a municipal fire department that you have control over. Is that something you want to share control with? Things like that. You know, things about building in budget transparency. And how can you as a city council, as part of a shared system, understand how that money is being spent, where right now you have absolute knowledge of how that money is being spent. And if that's and that tends to be a thing that comes up a lot in consolidated systems, is that there becomes a lack of transparency because nobody's really watching. And what comes back to individual city councils and village boards and stuff isn't necessarily always as transparent as people would like. So things to think about. These are the things that cause districts to fall apart down the line. All at once, costs get out of hand, nobody understands how it happened, and then you end up with people wanting to pull out of them and so on. Thinking about it from a cost perspective, when consolidations happen, they very rarely are going to save money on day one. What you're going to do is control the cost increases going forward, but looking at it from a perspective of we're going to reduce costs on day one to make the budget work better, that's not a goal here. That's just, if you do it well, you're not going to see savings on day one. Now, down the line, are you going to see potentially millions of dollars in savings with capital and so on? Probably. But again, that's over the long term, not over the short term. And then just things like how that funding model works. You know, what's your cost sharing going to be? How is that equitable? How do you ensure that you're not subsidizing one of the other communities or one of the other communities is not subsidizing you? Nobody cares when they're being subsidized. Everybody cares when they're subsidizing, okay? What kind of service do you expect? Are you gonna have a reduction in service because of changes, or are you gonna have an improvement in service? Things that will come up during this, right? You know, how do you navigate the culture of the workforce? You know, you just had one of the union members who I thought brought a lot of really good ideas to the table in this public comment. This is a complicated thing. When you take a lot of different departments and shove them together, it's not as simple as saying, okay, tomorrow we're all one group. There's a process. I've worked for a department that went through 2 different consolidations, it's difficult. It's difficult on the staff. And how do you maintain them, and how do you maintain that morale, particularly in a region here where you need to keep that workforce here within your group? And there's lots of other departments that would like to take your workforce and bring them to become their workforce. So, this has to be intentional. There has to be a lot of thought put into that. Thinking about how that legal structure needs to work, if you look on the second page, when you write intergovernmental agreements, you have to look at them as almost like a prenuptial agreement, okay? Because when everybody's getting together and making this and they've all decided to go forward, everybody's in love, right? And then at some point, somebody's going to realize that they're paying too much, or they think they do, and that's where this whole thing starts to fall apart. So thinking about it from that perspective of how do you navigate some of the conflict that comes up between the municipal partners, and how do you navigate these quasi-crises that come up within that district over time. And those are all things that need to be really vetted out on the front end. So, how you, then getting onto the community politics, how does that go in the community? Is the community going to support that? How are you selling it if you decide to go forward with it? Or if you have a contingent in your community that wants to go forward with it and the council is deciding that you shouldn't? How do you navigate that space? Because it can become very divisive in the community. Other thing is, what happens when there's turnover in your elected officials? Because the people that formed it all understand why you came together to do it. You skip a couple generations and that institutional knowledge isn't there anymore. And those are things where some of this conflict comes from. The conflict usually doesn't start on year one, it's like year 10. And then all at once, none of these things are there anymore. And then planning it out, how do you do that process of making that transition and having a deliberate plan for that? And then if you look at the bottom, there's some questions that I think you need to ask of yourselves as you go through the process of considering it, if that's what you choose to do. What's the service you want to get out of it? What happens if you don't do it? What does that look like? Is he up there working all you guys now? Yeah, it's okay to have pets. He'll get them from all of you. But, thinking about these questions as you go through and just asking of that, because I think this gives you kind of a pathway of how do we consider this? Should we consider it? And what do we want to get out of it? Because handing you a blank sheet of paper and saying, figure it out, that doesn't work in this space. It's too complicated. It's too complicated of a service to keep providing. And it's, as you probably know, it's gotten really, really expensive to provide this service. You're in an industry in public safety that's the inflation rate in this industry is 2 to 3 times the normal inflation rate in the country. And that's what you're experiencing. Your fire truck that you bought 10 years ago for $500,000 is now $1 million plus. The pay rates were, 15 years ago, you could pay somebody $40,000 to $50,000 a year. That number's 100 now. And I don't know where that stops. I can tell you it started, back in 2010 or so is when things started really taking off. When inflation was 1%, nobody paid attention to the 3% pay raise, right? Well, when inflation was 9% and then all at once it was a 20% pay increase, everybody paid attention. And that's where you're at now, and that's why everybody's kind of pressed, 20 years into levy limits. It makes it very difficult from year to year to do your budget. But does anybody have any questions for me on anything before I step back?
Any questions from the council? Alder Weiss.
What are the characteristics of a community or of an EMS district where our EMS that's locally controlled, where consolidation in a broader group would be recommended? And what are the characteristics where it would not be recommended? I mean, what's like the ideal case for, you guys, this type of community should definitely look at consolidation or the opposite?
It really depends. It's, I don't know that there's a recipe for this. Some of it has to do with like your own discretion as, what is the political climate like and what do the elected bodies have an appetite for? And in some cases, it might be that the cost is going to be greater to do it, and you may choose not to. In other cases, there may be potential cost savings. But it's like every one of these is so different. it's hard to answer that question for you of like any individual characteristic. One of the things I've learned in my job is that I don't know what's good for you. You're elected to know what's good for the community. I can tell you every way under the sun to do any of these things, but I don't know what works here. And that's for you guys to decide as part of your role as elected officials. But I think part of it, though, I mean, you need communities that are willing to cooperate with each other, that can get along with each other. You see, it's very common to see neighboring communities have rivalries. You know, somebody stole somebody's prom date 30 years ago and they're still mad about it, so we can't get along. Like, I mean, for serious. It's funny, but it's true. These are the kind of things you run into, especially I do a lot of work in rural Wisconsin. You know, they all know each other, and those are the kind of things. So, but being able to navigate through some of that conflict, come to good cooperative agreements for the common good. But you never know who's going to get elected next year, right? You don't know what kind of personality is going to show up and then just be like, why are you guys wasting all this money on our response? You know, I'm sure you get that sometimes just from your constituents wanting to know, why are you spending so much money? It's like, well, because when somebody calls 911, we need somebody that's good to show up, right? And that's your goal. That's why you exist as a government, is to provide good services to the people. So making sure that you can still do that as part of whatever you choose to do.
Alder Humke.
Yeah, I'm curious about the size. Do you have any advice on the size of a district and what would be like too large of a district if we were to consider?
It's really going to depend on your governance structure and the internal structure of the department. So there's a point when there's certain efficiencies that don't exist anymore because you get so big, right? So when you think about it from a perspective of like span of control, like how many people do you need to have like as supervisors over the number of people that are there, things like that. So that could potentially push your cost higher just because a bigger district might need you need more people because you have a bigger span of control if you have more stations and things like that to distribute that supervisory load. So you tend to think about supervision in part from like the actual supervision on an emergency scene. There's that part, but you've got the other part of operating the department itself and your HR type things and your ongoing development that leader brings to your line staff, particularly in your first level supervisors. So those are things that really need to be prioritized when you put together an agency. If you don't have those things in place, then you're kind of leaving things to chance, and you'll have a lot more inconsistency from station to station and things like that. Not that you won't anyway, because every leader is a little bit different, but you're going to have a lot better grip on what's going on in the department. You know, and public safety people that have worked in this for a while that are left in their own devices don't always make the best choices during downtime. Right, and you read newspaper articles that say that sometimes things happen in stations that shouldn't, and having good leadership development within your agency prevents a lot of that.
Okay, another question. Are you familiar with these studies that are like there's one being proposed? Like, are you familiar with this type of study? I guess my sort of line of questioning is I'm skeptical of studies in general in terms of like, are we just giving the intended out, like, are we just basically telling them what we want and they're just going to, give us that information? Are you familiar with these happening, and what is your sort of impression of the studies?
It's not unusual for me to enter a community to help a municipal body like yours and have studies have already been done there, like in the years leading up to being called. And it's what's happened in those cases is that they've done these studies, and then that's whatever is being recommended is not attainable by that local government, typically. So there's not like directions that come with it. They get this study and then they kind of get stuck and they don't know how to move it ahead. So then they've now burned a couple years and the situation's gotten worse through inaction. So there's two parts to this thing when you work with consultants and with studies, right? So they're going to give you data and they're going to be able to do things like, for instance, the scope of the study that you guys are potentially looking at being part of, I will not do that for you. The scope of this is enormous. So this is a very specialized space with there's there's consultant companies here in our state that do this kind of thing on a regular basis, but this is a very large-scale project that you're looking at. Okay, this is enormous. So there's probably just a couple companies that are familiar with a scope this large. Now, that being said, I'm not in a position to also recommend one company over another and things like that. That's not what I do as part of that. That's something that the vetting process for your council to go through and decide who you want to have for that and if they're capable of doing that study. Because there's a lot of moving parts in this. I mean, you have like a lot of different municipalities, you have a lot of different currently operating agencies, and being able to lay that out and put that in a position where it makes sense to each of you as you read through the report, I think is something critical. Like this is a situation I think that it makes sense to have a consultant just off the cuff. Certainly don't take my advice if you don't agree with it. But this is I mean, you're looking at a system that's potentially going to be spending in the tens of millions of dollars a year to operate, right? I don't know what your current budget is here, but I would imagine you start taking 4 or 5, 6 different departments and putting them together. This is going to be an enormously expensive endeavor. So you want to get it right.
Thank you.
Alder Swanson.
Thank you. My question is, it sort of touches on the enormous expenses and knowing what's getting spent where. You mentioned, and it's on your list, is the accountability problem, which is something that I think based on our prior conversations is important to us as a body. How do we balance, what is in many ways going to want to be an independent agency, right, able to govern themselves with the ability to say, hey, your books don't look right. What should we be looking to build in when we create this that gives us the ability to see what's going on? Like, are we looking for like a full-time employee who reports to the municipalities and says, here's what's going on, and breaks it down very clearly? Are we looking to have some sort of access on our end?
Yeah, so there is, some of these districts do have like a business manager who reports to the board and then by extension reports to the municipal partners through that. When you're looking at a large system like that, that's probably a very good investment where there's somebody who's responsible for watching the dollars every day and what's flowing through this. You're going to want to have required auditing. So think about how your municipality operates, and there's all these different parts that are built into having a city government. You don't have that in this. You have to build what you want it to be to kind of duplicate that. Do you want to have some version of a clerk? Do you want to have a version of a treasurer? Do you need to have an administrator, like a business manager, in addition to a chief or whatever else you have? Because there's this business side that's a multi-million-dollar organization, and then there's the operational side of the going out and doing good things for the people. So how you build that balance between the two, it's, the challenge with districting is that there's really no rules. The municipalities get to write their agreement how they want for the most part. So, but building those things in and investing in those things up front, I think is going to be critically important to making sure that there's that good transparency and accountability, particularly with the funding.
Thanks. Thank you. To sort of follow up on that, both the things I'm touching on are in the block number 1, the governance and control, because I think, ultimately, if we do the study, like the numbers will work or they won't, right, kind of thing, and like the service will get figured out or it won't. But if we're looking at building it, that's important to me up front. So talking about the authority shift is the other thing that I think has also come up for us. When, in your experience, do things go wrong with that authority? When do municipalities get the most upset with their lack of control or control being given in their perspective unfairly to another organization?
I don't know that unfairly is the right term for some of the things I've seen. What I've seen is there's times when the board that's governing this joint district lacks that accountability, and you might have individual players exerting individual authority that they don't have. You may have like the president of that board authorizing things that they don't have authority to do. Like, as you know, that council members sitting here individually don't have authority, right? Your authority is at a body. You take a vote, and whatever the vote is, that's what happens. And sometimes you'll see that governance break down, and you'll start seeing individual unilateral decision-making take place, and nobody really pays attention and reins it in until it goes bad. And then all at once, there'll be this like breakup of like some infighting that'll take place within the different municipalities. That's where you see districts start to blow up. I've seen that multiple times where there's been unilateral decision-making, it created this negative financial impact somewhere in there, and you'll start seeing partners pull out. You might see the district completely dissolve and so on. And it could happen in a very short period of time in some cases, a matter of just a few months, or in some cases, maybe the first that anybody knows about it is if they bankrupt the place. You know, I've seen that. I've had a call from a joint district where they had $30,000 in payroll to do, and they had $6,000 left in their account. Hey, can you help us figure this out? Yeah, you should have called me like 6 months ago, right? But you know, you go through and you figure out strategies for that for the short term, but then there's the long-term impact of that. And then there's a breakdown in the community of trust that goes with that too, right? Because all this stuff is gonna start showing up in these meetings, it's gonna show up in the media, and then the community sits there and goes, what are we paying all these taxes for these people just to run wild? That's not what the public wants. The public wants transparency, they want accountability, and they wanna know that their dollars are being spent wisely. So how do you build that into your agreement and then keep working with that so that year after year, as new people come into that board and you have new representatives and so on, that's just the way it is. That's just the way that we do business here. And you don't have these things happen that tear the place up. You know, at the end of the day, the public suffers from that. The employees suffer from that. And it's from, you know, maybe a couple rogue actors that tear the whole thing up.
Thank you.
Other questions from the council? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay. With that, we will move on to item 6D, which is committee appointments from the mayor's office. If they should be in your packet, and if they look all right, I would entertain a motion to confirm the committee appointments. Alder Swanson.
I move to confirm the committee appointments as described in the packet.
Motion by Alder Swanson. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Humke. All those in favor of confirming the committee appointments as described in the packet, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And those are approved. With that, we'll move on to item 7, which is announcements. Any announcements from the council? Seeing no announcements, we'll move on to item 8, which is the administrator's report. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just one announcement, and that is if you're streaming this right now, you can hear me, but you can't see me. If you can see me and hear me, it's probably post-production, posted online after tomorrow. So there's an issue where the video is not going on to YouTube right now. However, the audio is. So I was talking to communications manager, Mara Trusty, and she can fix that tomorrow. But anyway, just wanted to let you know that. And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Olick? Okay, we will move on to item 9, which is an engineer's report. Ms. Fisher.
Thank you. For the Hyperdrive project, earthwork and excavation of Pond 6 is underway. A temporary construction access road has been constructed from Dairy Ridge Road to the Sugar River. For Mark Drive Phase 2, the project was bid and a recommendation is on tonight's agenda. For the southeast and southwest elevated tank preliminary designs, the project preliminary designs are commencing. For the west side lift station upgrades, preliminary drawings were delivered to the city for review and comment. A design review meeting will take place during this week. For Whispering Coves, the water main loop design is complete and construction is expected to begin this May. For Avalon Ridge, water main installation under County Highway M is complete. Utility installation is resumed on Avalon Court. Wet pond restoration has begun. The design plans have been received for the multifamily buildings. It is anticipated that building construction will begin in June. For Kettle Creek North, the Hemlock utility design is complete and construction is expected to begin in May. And finally, for SSM, roadway construction on State Highway 69 is resumed and pavement replacement is expected in late April. Valley Road utility adjustments and paving are expected to begin in early May. With that, I can take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions on the engineer's report? Okay, seeing no questions, we will move on to item 10, which is committee reports. First up, we have 10A Finance Committee. Alder Humke.
Yeah, I make a motion for payment to the bills, the amount of $2,109,955.92.
Motion by Alder Humke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Lytle. Alder Humke.
Yeah, we have two main payments. The first is bond trust payments for principal and interest on 3 debt issues for $1,120,790. And the second is to Madison Metro Sewerage District for the first quarter payment, the amount of $547,468.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on the motion to pay the bills? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of paying the bills in the amount specified signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Finance?
Nothing further, Mr. Mayor.
Excellent, thank you. With that, we'll move on to 10B, which is Public Works, Sewer, and Water Committee. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. Items 1 and 2 were not discussed during the Public Works meeting because we ran out of time. So I would like to defer those to a future meeting after Public Works is able to discuss them. So I move on to item 3, which is awarding a contract for project 2024-105, Mark Drive Reconstruction, Phase 2, Northwestern Stone LLC. I move to approve this contract.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Weiss. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. The engineering estimate, including contingency, is $2,829,278.50. 5 bids were received for this project. The apparent low bid was submitted by Northwestern Stone LLC for $2,137,596.55. Northwestern Stone LLC has experience working on similar projects in the Dane County area. Public Works staff are of the opinion that the company is qualified and capable of performing the work as specified. Staff recommend the contract be awarded to Northwestern Stone LLC.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of awarding the contract for project 2024-105 Mark Drive Reconstruction Phase 2 to Northwestern Stone LLC in the amount specified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. Next up is a Traffic Safety Committee appeal that came to Public Works. And I move, well, do I say what the recommendation is first and then I move? No.
Make the motion.
Make
and
the
then
motion first.
explain.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
I move that we overturn the decision by the Traffic Safety Committee on Zing Drive and install a 4-way stop sign.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Hernandez. Alder Tucker Long.
Requests are received regarding various traffic safety-related issues. An internal working group comprised of different disciplines referred to as the Traffic Safety Committee reviews and evaluates the requests before reaching a decision. A neighborhood resident requested installation of a 4-way stop sign at the intersection of Zing Drive and Dunhill Drive, citing vehicle speeds on northbound Zing Drive and the presence of young families in the area. The main reason the TSC denied the request is on the basis that stop signs are not an effective traffic calming measure and that the intersection does not yet meet the engineering warrant threshold for stop sign installation, though the committee acknowledged that the warrant criteria are likely to be met as the surrounding neighborhood continues to develop. A staff memo with more details about the background decision, nature of the appeal, and other considerations are enclosed with the packet. To give you an overview of the discussion that we had in committee, we had multiple neighbors come and give feedback. I believe all of you also received email feedback as well. And well, this recap talks about just the speeds on the road. Speed is not the only factor. Additionally, at this intersection, there is a bus stop on one side of the road, and there is a playground on the other side of the road. So kids from the east side have to cross to the west for the playground if I'm remembering correctly, and from the west side to the east side for the bus stop. So there are a lot of children that need to be crossing at this intersection during peak busy times. In talking with the representatives of the committee who were at Public Works, they said that it was really close to meeting the warrants. And in fact, one of the warrants is sort of a miscellaneous other reasons kind of category. So it's not a super defined thing. And in talking about it with, there is a large hill right by this intersection as well. So visibility is, you don't have very long range visibility. So the committee voted 3-0 to overturn the appeal and recommend to the Common Council to install a four-way stop at that intersection.
Questions or comments on this motion? Alder Swanson, then myself.
It occurs to me that I guess I don't know what the standards are for installing crosswalk lines as well, but I wonder if the visibility on the road itself, in addition to the installation of the stop signs, would be of positive benefit. Can any of our city administrator or engineering experts?
Who wants to take this one? Ms. Fisher?
Yeah, I think generally the city, and this is, I think, a longstanding policy, just hasn't striped crosswalks in many locations. I do think there is a benefit, but obviously there's a cost associated with it as well. I know City of Madison seems to do all of them, and they come through and do it every single year. So it's just something to think about, just from like a, if you do one, do you do all of them, or, but I think in this location, if you're adding the stop sign, I think it would be helpful to have that crosswalk, because drivers are required to stop if someone's in a crosswalk, right? So.
Yeah, so I guess with that on the table, I think, would I be able to move to amend the motion to include also striping at this intersection?
I think that might exceed what's on the item agenda, and I think though that I would suggest to the traffic committee that to take it back, that the council would be interested in a sidewalk and see if, or a crosswalk, and see if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think as now I'm still in favor of the four-way stop as well, but I'd like to revisit the idea of striping the crosswalk there too.
Calling on myself, I think it is highly likely the city is going to put a stop sign there in the next couple of years anyway. I guess I don't see the harm in putting it in a year or two early, and there might be a benefit in the sense that we get it in people's minds that there's a stop sign there. And then I guess my second thing is, I guess I would just like to potentially raise this issue for staff, is that if we could somehow either add like a flashing light or a flag or something to the sidewalk, just because the people are going fast down the hill, maybe they need an extra visual reminder that the stop sign is there. I know that I believe the stop sign heading on Cross Country, if you're heading west by the Draft House, does have lights on that. Although the last time I was at the Draft House, I saw someone run the stop sign. So I don't know if it works or not. But I definitely think that a stop sign seems like a good place to start. Alder Helmke, then Alder Host.
I just wanted to say thank you, first of all, to the neighbors for bringing this to our attention. I know they've been working on it for a couple of years now, and I think this is a really good time as we're seeing the development grow. And also to the traffic committee for, receiving the feedback that we're giving them and providing us an opportunity to explain further, and for Public Works to be receptive to that. I agree. I actually really love the idea of us, crosswalk. When you come over the ridge, it is really hard to understand kind of what's happening at that top and point. And I think for just a safety crossing the street standpoint for all the kids in the neighborhood, there's a lot of kids that live there. So I'm just really grateful that it passed committee.
Alder Hoax.
Thank you. So who made the first recommendation to deny it? Was it the Traffic Safety Committee? And then you overturned your own decision to?
It was, I guess the Traffic Safety Committee is staff. And so then it was appealed to the Public Works.
Okay. That's what I wasn't understanding what had changed.
Yeah.
When the committee then overturned its own decision, which is, that's their right to do so. Just, it would be interesting. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Seeing no further discussion. All those in favor of the motion to overturn the Traffic Safety Committee recommendation for the Zing stop sign and put a four-way stop at Zing Drive, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Alder Tucker Long.
Thank you. I move that we overturn the Traffic Safety Committee's decision on the South Main Street traffic safety options.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
I realized I didn't say what to put there.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. And put in a painted bike lane from where South Main curves after Locust to Melody Lane.
Motion by Alder Tucker Long. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by, I think, Alder Harrison. Alder Tucker Long.
Alder Tucker Long has appealed the Traffic Safety Committee denial to the Public Works, Water, and Sewer Committee regarding pedestrian and bicycle safety on the east side of South Main Street between Badger Mill Creek Bridge and Melody Lane. The corridor currently lacks any sidewalk or designated bike or pedestrian facility, and limited sight distance due to the hill and curve between Locust Street and Melody Lane creates hazardous conditions for residents, including children traveling to school, Fireman's Park, and other destinations. The proposed solution would repurpose the infrequently used on-street parking lane to create a protected bike lane/pedestrian facility using traffic delineator posts with new marked crosswalks at Melody Lane and near the Carnes driveway at the southern terminus. The TSC denied the request not on safety grounds, but because the associated capital costs for delineator posts, installation, and crosswalk markings have not been budgeted for the current fiscal year, and the committee determined the investment should be evaluated through the city's standard capital prioritization process. And the packet again says Alder Tucker Long is appealing, but this did come from a resident. So Jess Gunderson is also appealing on the basis that the combination of no pedestrian facility, poor sightlines, and a residential population with children warrants near-term action rather than a deferral through a multi-year budget cycle. A staff memo with more details about the background, decision, nature of the appeal, and other considerations are enclosed with the packet. And giving you a brief overview of the discussion we had in committee is that if the issue is the delineator posts, those don't necessarily need to be there, or maybe could be there temporarily, or we could use orange construction bins, just something to sort of highlight that the painted bike lane is now there so that cars definitely see it. It's right as the road widens back out to 2 lanes from 1 after you cross over the culvert as you're coming into town on Main Street. And so what this would do is the painted line would just start as the road widens back out. So it would widen into a bike lane instead of into 2 lanes for traffic. There is parking across the street, and evaluating the parking situation for the houses and multifamily that's there. All of the houses have longer driveways, and the multifamily all has parking lots either on the side or rear of the buildings. So in talking with some of the residents there is adequate parking available for residents and their guests off-street. And also residents had expressed concern over parking on the street anyways because the driver has to get out into the traffic on Main Street. And so most of them were reluctant to have anyone park on that side of the street anyways. But this solution would require removing the parking on the east side of Main Street from where the road widens after the culvert to Melody Lane where the sidewalk begins. If anyone has any questions, I'm available.
Thank you for that explanation. Questions or comments on this motion? Alder Weiss.
I just want to say that this is one of those situations where I think it's, as Verona's grown, there's a stretch of road that it wouldn't build like this now, right? I mean, if the houses didn't exist in the way that they exist now, we'd never, we'd never, allow nobody would move forward with building it like that. So it's just kind of a situation that happened as Verona continued to grow. So, and because of the narrowness of the road and like about the way the corner is and the hill and a bunch of other things, there's not a really good solution. And I think that enforcement of the speed limit on that stretch of road, I think, is a big part of making sure that that's a safe section of Verona for pedestrians. There's no striping, or I don't know if there's a solution here, just because, again, that's from a traffic design standpoint, that is the way the road is and the way that the houses are, that's not how you design it. But there'd be a sidewalk on that side of the road or whatever. But at the end of the day, I feel like there's and to a smaller degree on Zing Drive. But in this situation, I think like there's an elephant in the room of we have a stretch of road that we know everybody violates the law on, and we just kind of, a part of the background fabric of the, of how we live, rather than being addressed as a problem. And so I think that's got to be a part of the solution, is to ensure that we are just making sure that, whatever it is that we have to do to make sure that people are following the law on that stretch of road, I think that we have to do that, whatever that means.
Other questions or comments? Alder Swanson.
I want to echo Alder Weiss's statements about enforcement there, but I also want to acknowledge that I think I was driving that way 2 days ago, and I did see an officer was parked there monitoring that situation. So I think it's something that we are aware of, but I think we can always do better. I'm in favor of protecting cyclists and pedestrians in general. I think we need to do more to accommodate non-automobile methods of transportation. This makes sense to me. Even understanding the concerns that the traffic committee had, and I guess I'll defer to Alder Helmke, who's the council budget person, on if she has any concerns about spending the money on this. But I think we should do it.
Alder Helmke.
Well, as I said in committee, the striping expense is actually a expense, not a capital project. So I think there may have been a misunderstanding. Either it came from I don't even know if the objects that you were referencing, the pillars that are in the road, I don't even think that's a capital expense. So I think regardless, there is, not to say there isn't other things that we were going to potentially be using that money for. It's a designated pool of money every year that we use for striping. So there's definitely trying to, I think, as Carla had mentioned in the meeting, there's, we have to think about what are the projects that we need to focus on. But, cost-wise, this is not a large dollar amount compared to other things that we are talking about tonight. So I'm comfortable with it.
Other questions or comments from the council? Alder Lytle.
This is a question for the city administrator, probably. I know we discussed a grant application and a project for Safe Routes to School study. And, I would hope that we're soon considering this more holistically. So there is kind of a pipeline of these that may require capital projects that we could start incorporating.
Mr. Alec?
Correct. The assistant city administrator attended an in-person course in Chicago a week and a half ago on the Safe Routes to School grant, and we're putting together the plan. So that's starting to move forward now in the last month plus. So yes, the idea again for the Safe Routes to School plan is to then have something in place where we can then leverage federal grants for larger improvements. And definitely this is one of those areas where there's been a lot of growth, and is a lot of opportunity to, get traffic safety measures into place. So, yeah, it's a good observation.
Alder Hoax.
I just had a question. I'm looking at the map. So the further on M, where the flashers are that cross, the cross M that goes down to the Badgerman Light bike path, right? That has a bike lane that just stops, right? So then we're gonna have a section on that road that does nothing, and then it start up again. Is that the plan? Am I understanding that correctly?
I believe so, yes.
So across from, if you're on Locust, there would be no bike path on the east side of Main Street, and then it would just start up again. So is that ideal?
That's correct, because it narrows for the culvert, and so there's no space over that culvert. The culvert actually had to be widened to put in the multi-use path on the southern or western side. I'm not sure because of the curve right there, which one you would say, but on the opposite side of the street, there is a multi-use path.
Right. Are we not encouraging people to use that path? Because we built flashers so they could cross over and use the path, right? But now we're
Correct.
putting a bike path on the same street, just on the road, adjacent to the, like,
Nope, it's further up the road. So after you come up the curve to come into town,
right.
on the right-hand side of the street, there's several houses and several multifamily units, and there's no sidewalk or pedestrian bike route or bike path on that side of the street, and there's no legal way to cross the street at that point to get to the sidewalk on the other side of the street by Carnes. It's also a steep hill with a blind curve, so, you know, we talked about, I absolutely in favor of encouraging, like, people to follow the law there and slow down. But even if people are going 25, it's still a steep hill with a blind curve with kids coming out there.
Alder Oaks?
Okay, I'm looking at the map. And then, is there anywhere else that we do those divider posts or whatever you're talking about, like is that standard that we put those in or not?
So I don't know if you remember, but last year we blocked off a parking space in front of Quick Trip with them to tighten up traffic on Verona Avenue. And so that's where the idea came from, to do the same thing because we're introducing a new traffic pattern. But the delineator posts are not the key portion of it. It was just to sort of like make people aware of the fact that that paint is there now, as a way to sort of highlight it. Again, because it's a blind corner as you come up, so people are not necessarily likely to notice the new bike path right away.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Alder Hernandez.
Yeah, I would just like to add, as a non-driver myself, I think that, well, paint isn't enough. I think it's a step in the right direction. So if cost is an issue, and this will be the first step that we can take in making the road safer for non-drivers, then I think that we should move with this motion.
Other questions or comments? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of overturning the Traffic Safety Committee decision regarding the South Main traffic safety options and putting in the bike lane as described, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Anything further from Public Works?
Nothing further.
Excellent. With that, we will move on to 10C, which is a Sustainability Task Force. We have one item, which is the discussion and possible action regarding the solar panels for the Verona Senior Center regarding or the Eagle Point solar bid. Mr. Olick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The 2026 budget included $60,000 for a solar installation project, and just $60,000 in the budget. The senior center was the chosen project. The city received 6 proposals total, and after review, the Sustainability Task Force recommended awarding the contract to Eagle Point Solar in the amount of $59,969, as it represents the most cost-effective proposal based on levelized cost of electricity and projected payback period. The recommendation also provides staff with flexibility to work with Eagle Point Solar on minor design adjustments to include the substitution of a monitor kiosk in place of Critter Guard.
And if I could just add regarding that, the Eagle Point solar bid did not include a Critter Guard. Most of the other ones did. The solar equipment is potentially expensive, and while it's unlikely for squirrels or something to get in there, it's not zero. And there was also $500 worth of monitoring equipment. And since the Sustainability Task Force has felt like the monitoring equipment we have out there has not been functioning well and is perhaps not even a good use of energy, that maybe we take that one out and then put the Critter Guard in. Based on the other bids, it was about $800 for the Critter Guard, but we don't know the exact amount that Eagle Point Solar might charge us. So we want to give staff, assuming it's a few $100s, some flexibility, and because it might not be a one-to-one. But questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Humke.
I just have a quick question. Seeing as we're so close to the budgeted amount, is that the final, like there would be no potential change orders or anything on, besides the Critter Guard that you're talking about?
I guess we don't really know, but I would say that the $60,000 doesn't include the incentives that we believe we are likely to get.
Oh.
So the final amount's likely to be, I think, $38,000. I don't have it in front of me.
That sounds close, Mayor.
Okay.
Thank you. Great.
Alder Tucker Lund.
I move to approve the quote for solar panels for the Verona Senior Center in the amount of $59,969 for the installation of a solar array at the senior center with flexibility granted to the city administrator to substitute a monitor with a critter guard.
Motion by Alder Tucker Lund. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Harrison. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on this motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of granting the solar panels project for the Verona Senior Center to Eagle Point Solar, as described in the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. With that, we will move on to item 11, new business. First up, we have 11A, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the Shared Fire Protection and Emergency Medical Services, that is EMS feasibility study and implementation plan that would be done by McMahon and Associates. Mr. Alec.
Thank you, Mayor. There have been ongoing discussions by several communities south of Madison regarding a combined fire department EMS district model. The City of Fitchburg and Village of Oregon conducted an RFP process to solicit a feasibility study and implementation analysis of such a district, with McMahon and Associates being selected as the consultant to the study. The proposal by McMahon allows for other communities to opt into the study with a deadline of the end of April. The cost estimate for the City of Verona to participate is $19,425. Because the study would include an analysis of the entire fire district, which includes the town of Verona and the town contracts with the City of Verona, if the council wishes to opt into the study, staff recommend paying for the study from the fire department fund balance. If approved, this is a study only. There are no immediate changes to service. Additionally, if the city were to ultimately pursue participation in a district model, any potential changes would likely be more than two years out.
Thank you. Alder Humke.
Okay. I really appreciate the presentation from Mr. Small. That was really helpful as we think about this. I am curious, having just gone through the public works building process with the consultant and aligning all the different pieces and getting so we all had to sort of give our opinions on what was prioritized. How does that work in this situation, and who wins if this prioritization happens and we all don't agree on any of it? And how do we get a study that's meaningful, that's going to give us results, or giving us information that we're trying to look at when we're not even sure we're even any bit on the same page?
Was that rhetorical or was that directed?
I'm
towards-
asking Mr. Olick, how does this, because someone's putting this forward, so I don't know the McMahon. We've never done something like this before at this level with multiple municipalities. How does that get sorted out, and who is communicating on behalf of, who's communicating on behalf of Verona, but then who in Verona is making the decision on what is important to us?
Mr. Alec?
Well, I've had a counterpart here with all of my discussions as we've gone along, getting to this point at least. But yeah, I mean, this is a continual information feeding process. If you're aware, I've been bringing in posting notes from meetings and things like that, trying to keep everybody apprised of what's been going on as far as our discussions go. I mean, the onus is really on me or whoever is assigned and tasked to communicate back and forth between the group and the council. That would be my responsibility.
Who is, but how are we decide? What is the process for communicating what is needed, the inputs of this study? What is that looking?
Alder Helmke, there's an interview process. They're going to come here, they're going to talk to people, they're going to gather information, and that's kind of why I grouped in the town of Verona, because they're grouped in as well. That interview, that price went up a little bit. But anyway, that's part of their information gathering, is figuring out what our Verona's wants and needs as part of this process.
And does that include the new chief, the new fire chief and the interim fire chief and our fire staff?
All of it.
And EMS. So the whole gamut, everybody will at all levels of this will get interviewed.
There's definitely an information gathering element to
Okay.
this, and yes.
I'm just going to make a comment. I'm still super skeptical of this process. I very much appreciate the representative from the fire union coming, because I was actually pleasantly surprised that they were interested and that they are being included in this process. I just don't honestly know how this is going to work. If this is as massive as Mr. Small is talking about, that it scares me even more. And all these different pieces, which is really helpful and super thorough, that like so much of this could blow up at any given point in time. So I actually don't know how I want to vote tonight about this, but I'm very skeptical. So I'd love to hear other people's opinions.
Other thoughts from Alder Lidle?
Yes, I'm curious if there's a benefit to making a motion at this point, or if we can just have general discussion prior to any motion.
That's at the discretion of the body. Traditionally, the way the bodies functions, people sometimes will have debate before they decide on the motion, but if someone wanted to do the opposite way, that's allowed to.
All right. Try to keep my comments fairly brief. This was a topic I discussed a couple of months ago in terms of participating as a community in the discussions leading up to the study. I do know there is good reason to be skeptical of a study by a consultant, and I have a fair level of skepticism myself, and I think discussions with Mr. Small reinforce that. What I see facing our community is sometime in the next 2 to 5 years, there are going to be very likely to be significant changes coming, whether that's changes to the Fitrona EMS district, whether that's changes associated with all the things that have been mentioned around the rapid increase of costs, far exceeding CPI, that have been happening in both the fire and EMS service. And the plus side of a district is we do have some flexibility under levy limits to realize that if the number of calls for service are going up ahead of CPI and the associated costs, we can build those into the budget for those entities. Whereas if we see a city-run department for fire and EMS with significant increases, we do not have those same flexibility around levy limits, especially if suddenly we're faced with running both a fire and an EMS service at the city level. So what I do know is that there is a lot of interest in Verona joining the study and participating in a potential future district that we should view with some skepticism. What are these other communities hoping to get from Verona if we participate? What I view having this data and having a common baseline to what the other communities are looking at is it only increases our bargaining power when it comes to evaluating these, identifying shortcomings in McMahon's data, pointing out things that may or may not be applicable to the city of Verona that are for others, and sitting on the sidelines for the next year or so, unable to provide those levels of input once the end of April closes. We're in a much poorer bargaining position when it comes to making sure all the things that Mr. Small pointed out are being considered with an eye to the city of Verona. So while I don't like the idea of spending $20,000, I think the potential, it may or may not be there for hundreds of thousands of dollars in innovation grant that the city of Verona would qualify for. I do think the perspective of our staff and our fire and EMS leadership to participate in those meetings, presenting our perspectives and participating in those interviews to say what has and hasn't worked well with Fitrona in the past is important. And we can take all that data with a grain of salt when it comes to making a decision, but having a different baseline for presenting our case, I think only weakens our bargaining position, which is why I think $20,000 with the potential to end up with a much stronger bargaining position for the city of Verona and or the potential for hundreds of thousands of dollars to address these increasing costs would be a much better position for the city to be in.
Other thoughts? Alder Swanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm of much the same mind as both Alders Helmke and Alder and Lytle. I have a fair amount of skepticism about the process. I think that the information we've gotten from the mayor about sort of the conversations that have been coming into existence around this fairly nebulous future endeavor make me skeptical as to the long-term benefit to Verona itself. But at the same time, I'm not going to say that $20,000 is cheap, because it's not. $20,000 is a lot of money, but $20,000 is cheap relative to, spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions, effectively subsidizing or bankrolling, another community's needs. And if that's the sort of thing that we end up needing to do based on the evolving landscape of emergency services in our neighborhood, then having that information up front, I think, is probably worth it. I think that juice is worth the squeeze. That being said, I want to make sure that when we approach the information gathering from McMahon and Associates, that that the information that we are providing and the information that we're getting back is useful. And I mean, once we've paid the money, we've paid the money, and that's sort of how it is. But I think that I'd rather have information that we can be skeptical of than no information that we can't feel either way about.
Alder Tagalong.
So I have a question for staff and then a comment. So what exactly are the tangible deliverables from this study?
Mr. Olek.
I don't have the list offhand handy. I'm sorry. I can dig it out.
Do you have a general idea of what the deliverables will be?
Sure. I mean, it's a feasibility study and implementation analysis. Basically, they're looking at a lot of the different, almost the sheet right here. How is the governance going to work? What are the fiscal benefits, et cetera? That's really the sheet is what they're looking to do and provide information about.
Okay, so I guess, after listening to Mr. Small's presentation, it struck me a lot that his answer to the question of what should we do is, I can't tell you what to do, you know what to do. And if the study is going to give us the answers to these questions, I'm really skeptical because they have to come to us to get our answers to these questions, and then they're just going to aggregate it. If this were going to give us like, hey, this is how much it's going to cost you to join into a group, or, this is a 10-year budget plan for your group, or some sort of like truly useful, tangible deliverable, I might be more amenable to this. But if this is just talking about, is it feasible? And it's like, sure, it's feasible. Is it going to be something we want to do? Well, I don't know that the study is going to give us any information to help us make that decision. I don't want to spend money to feel like we have the power to have an opinion on this data, because I feel that since it involves us, we can have an opinion on the data regardless of who does the study, because it involves whether or not we're going to participate in this. And we already know what our concerns are. We already know, we can talk to our staff if we'd like more information about how they feel about it. I don't feel like we need to spend $20,000 to pay someone else to ask us these questions and then record our answers for us. That's my 2 cents.
I'll call on myself, then Alder Hoeks, then Alder Lytle, then Alder Helmke. I just want to say I generally agree with the things that Alder Tagalong said. I think, again, I don't know I can't predict the future. I know there was a rumor going around that Fitchburg had asked to withdraw from the district. I've been told that rumor is not true. But I do think it's coming. I think this is crystal ball stuff, but like just judging the political situation in Fitchburg, I think that Fitchburg is too invested in this to back out at the end. I think almost certainly they're going to withdraw from the district and try to come up with something else. It's entirely possible that I'm wrong, but if I had to bet like real money, I would bet on Fitchburg leaving at some point. So at some point, the city will be at an inflection point, and we will have to make a decision whether we want to go with Fitchburg and make a separate district, stay in a district, or make a city department. And so I do understand the sort of reasoning that we would benefit for him having as much information as possible. However, I just don't see the value in this study. I just don't think it's going to tell us something we don't already know. I think ultimately we're the policymakers, and ultimately this is a political decision, and that it falls on us to make the decision based on what we think will be best for our constituents and provide the best public safety, and of course do right by city staff. So again, it's not make or break on the budget. We have the money for it. It's not going to be a disaster if the study does get funded. However, I just don't think we should spend the money, because I don't think it's going to get us anything beneficial. And I would still like to stay involved in the process, just because I think it's beneficial as well. Alder Hoeks, Alder Lytle, Alder Humke.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I think I'm all for spending money on, experts that we're paying them money for their expertise, right? So, but I guess I'm not understanding if we could get a final product that says this makes sense for, this entity, not so much maybe for this one. Like if it laid out like who would make sense for and why and reasons, but, and I get that to a lot of moving parts, but I guess I don't understand what we would get from this that would help us along the decision-making process, So again, I agree 20 grand is not a lot when we're looking at this whole process, but I don't think we're going to get a lot. I don't see what we're getting out of it that we don't already know or feel. So I guess I'm not really for spending money now.
Alder Lytle, Alder Humke.
I was just going to point out that in the packet is the scope of work, which talks about the development of 5, 10, and 20-year benchmarks, initial cost projections. So, that a fair amount of thought went into this RFP in order to use the data from it to make decisions. So I don't know why Verona's decision-making process would be that much different in terms of the data we need than the other communities that put the RFP together.
Alder Humke.
I wanted to give some clarification because we have a new member on the council about, and for those of you who don't know, I wanted to reference what Alder Lytle was talking about earlier about the levy limits, because I think that might be something that if you don't sit on the finance committee, you might not understand. So currently the fire department is a city department. And so it is considered when we do the budget, like we have a limit that we can't spend over unless we want to raise our taxes. And we're really careful. And so we have to make decisions. So like, for example, last year, there were numerous positions that were offered in the fire department and we could not add them because we did not have funds and within the levy limit. However, our EMS department, because it is a district, they are able to request us to exceed the levy limit if we all collectively agree as a part of the district to do so. We all have to agree. And so that can be great, right? In this situation, we're talking about costs going up exponentially. But when we think about, well, what I hear about most often from my constituents is our taxes. And so that, we're talking about like, well, you know best what you need for yourselves is I want to make sure that, yes, it's great that we can increase the cost, that we can absorb those costs, but like, what is the impact? How are our constituents going to feel about us incurring those costs? And so when we have ultimate control over it, like we know what we can do and can't do. And I just feel like as a person who is constantly looking at these things, like that gives me a lot of comfort knowing that we have that level of control. And it makes me more nervous to think about when we talk about large entities and everybody needed to buy into this and the pressure that might come with that. I wanted to just make that kind of clear so that that everybody understood what that looked like. The other piece is maybe to Alder Lytle's point is if we're talking about sort of laying out what this will all look like in terms of finances down the road, like I'm assuming we would not get sort of like a counterpoint of like it would cost you this much if you don't do this. Like what is the comparatives that we would have to say like it would be this or this? I think that would actually be really helpful, and I'm not sure that is part of this, but curious. if you know.
Mr. Alec, do you want to take I'm trying to look through the contract as. Alder Swanson.
Looking at the listed information on page 63 of the packet, it does say comparison of operational cost projections to status quo service delivery model.
Okay.
So it does look like that's included.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Weiss.
Just so I'm clear, so there's a kind of a statement of work, and that's based upon the Oregon and Fitchburg. That's like the study, and then this would be piggybacking onto that same study, but including Verona in it?
Correct.
Okay. And so the study is specific to the plan of a combined fire district with those communities and the town of Verona. That's the scope?
Unless other communities would opt in yet through the end of the month.
Okay.
And I'm unaware. I don't know if I haven't heard anything.
If I could add, I know the Village of McFarland and the City of Stoughton have both been asked about it. I don't necessarily know if they're going to pay for any studies, though.
Does our participation or non-participation in the study impact our participation or non-participation in the future district?
I don't think so. That's kind of a crystal ball question to an extent, that it's entirely possible that there could be some, effects of being left out of the study that Fitchburg and Oregon decide, well, this is what the study said. It didn't include Oregon. It didn't include Verona. So therefore we're moving in this direction. It's also possible it'll have absolutely zero impact. My impression is, and it's always been that they want us in the district. So even if we drag our feet or don't pay for a study, I feel like we'll still be welcomed with open arms.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments, or motions? Alder Lytle.
I will make the motion, kind of reading the room, looking how it'll go, but I would move that we dedicate the 19,000, do you have that number?
19,425.
19,425 to participate in the Joint Fire EMS District analysis as shown in the administrator's memo.
Motion by Alder Lytle. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alder Swanson. Alder Lytle, do you want to comment?
No, I think we've learned a lot. We've heard from some experts and as well as Local 311 about the pros and cons of the joint fire and EMS district. I do know there are a lot of unknowns and a general skepticism on spending money for studies that in the end, we have to make our own decision based on our own data and our own priorities for what's best for the community and for the staff at our both EMS and Verona Fire Department. But the stronger case we would have to advocate for our perspectives by participating in the study, I think far outweighs the approximately $20,000 that this would cost us.
Alder Swanson?
Thank you. So in my day-to-day work as a substitute teacher, I don't necessarily get to focus in on specific content knowledge. So I try to work on generalizations with high schoolers, which is not always easy. But the thing I like to emphasize more than anything else is that there's value in asking stupid questions. And maybe participating in this study is spending $20,000 to ask a stupid question, but I think there's probably still value in it. I think we should participate.
Other question? Alder Tucker-Long.
Well, I agree that there's definitely a benefit in asking stupid questions and having more data. This isn't the first study that Fitchburg has done on this. And if their previous studies haven't gotten them the information they need, I'm skeptical that this one is going to do something more groundbreaking. Also, in the packet, yeah, we do get some deliverables, but it says it's based on the interviews and information that they collect from our staff. So basically, we could also just ask our staff to estimate what our costs would be as well, because it sounds like from the packet that that's what they're going to be doing. Also, with the study we just went through with Barrientos, we did the study, but basically what it came down to is they asked our staff for the numbers, and then they presented the numbers to us. And I don't know that this is going to give us any information that is going to help us tangibly make a decision going forward. And if other cities have been asked to participate and are or are not, it's not even going to be a truly comprehensive picture of what this would actually need to be like. And when it comes to the decisions about, how much control we want to have over things, how much money we want to have to spend towards other communities' items, those are all things that we are going to have to decide. And just because a study tells us that, we should chip in a lot more because these other areas need extra ambulances, or they need extra fire trucks, or they need a new station, or they need whatever, it's still going to come down to us deciding how do we want this structured. And I think it's great that we have this handout with the questions that we need to evaluate, but I don't think it's going to be a good idea to have a third-party company tell us what we answered these questions as. So I'm going to be voting no.
Other thoughts from the council on the motion? Alder Helmke.
So I'm curious, I am more amenable to voting if it was just knowing it was Oregon and Fitchburg, but if when you throw the other two in the mix, that makes me feel like a hard no. So I don't know if there's any way to say, like, I would to amend it to say, like, I'm willing to pay for the study if it's just the three, and if the other entities go in, or if anybody would be in favor of that. But that's sort of where I'm at in terms of, I just don't like how massive that sounds.
Yeah, I don't know if that is possible. I don't think it is. I think it would be more or less we'd be guessing whether they're going to be included or not. I mean, it's a very fluid situation in the sense that, like, again, I think Fitchburg is going to push forward with it, but it's entirely possible in 2 years we'll have spent a lot of time on this and nothing will have changed.
Yeah.
So
okay, thanks.
Motion, Alder Takarlon.
Sorry, one more question. The innovation grant, how guaranteed is that money? And if we're not talking about doing this for 2 more years, are those grants guaranteed to still be there in 2 years?
Mr. Alec?
From my perspective, I guess the innovation grant is great if we qualify for it. I don't assume anything, right? There's a likelihood that it will qualify, but I don't want to make promises I can't keep. But there's a possibility that this would be covered under the grant.
Okay, but is the grant for like this year and then it has to get renewed, or
there's another application process next year for it?
So it's already set up to have another application process?
Correct.
For how many years?
I don't know that level of detail.
And I mean, I guess I would also add, even if it had been set up for 1,000 years, it's possible for a future legislature to be like, we disagree and we're going to take the money away.
Fair.
Or to make it bigger. Who knows, right?
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to make sure it wasn't like a this year only thing if we're talking about not having a solution for 2 years, so.
Motion before the body. Other questions or comments? Seeing no further discussion, I'm going to ask for raised hands because I'm not sure how this one is going to go. So all those in favor of the Shared Fire Protection and Emergency Medical Services EMS feasibility study and implementation plan with McMahon and Associates in the amount specified, please raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. Opposed, no. That is a tie. And the mayor breaks the tie, and I'm going to vote no. So motion fails 4-4. With that, we will move on to 11B, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the amendment to the ground lease agreement array. Mr. Alec.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did send this as a separate attachment to the council. U.S. Cellular has a ground lease with the city of Verona for cellular equipment located at Stomphold Field. U.S. Cellular was recently acquired by T-Mobile, and the location is no longer needed by T-Mobile. Array is a third party which negotiates cellular leases, and because of the acquisition, they are proposing to amend the lease in the following ways. Reduce rent paid to the city from $2,076.35 a month to $900 a month. retain a 3% annual increase for rent, implement a co-location fee of $250 a month for each future subtenant with a notification process for when subtenants locate on the tower, ensure that Array chooses to completely remove their, if they choose to completely remove their equipment, the tower stays up and along with the lights for the baseball field. And Attorney Kleinmeyer and I think we have this in a close enough spot where we're recommending approval subject to final approval by the city attorney and city administrator.
Thank you. I have a question. So if T-Mobile doesn't need the location, why is anyone paying rent for it at all?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's a ground lease. It still is a location that someone could locate. And so they would get obviously rent if someone would put their cellular equipment up on the tower. It's a tower management company is really what we're dealing with.
So then Array basically wants to hold it potentially for the future?
Correct.
Okay.
And the location, if you well, you know where Stoutful Field is close to the entry, the gateway to Verona. It's a very good location.
Okay. And so I guess in your opinion then, if we just said, no, the original rate stands, they would probably just withdraw then? Is that what you're thinking?
Mayor,
or?
they told me they will.
Okay.
Yes, they will remove their equipment and be gone.
Okay. I mean, I will say during negotiations, sometimes people say things that aren't true to try to get a better rate. But I just want.
If you feel any level of comfort, well, we didn't get any more than $900 in rent. We did get from 2.5% to 3% on the increase on the annual increase to the rent. So.
Okay. Anyways, I just want to put it out there. We can always just say leave it and have them withdraw if we want. But questions, comments, or motions from the council? Alder Tucker-Long. Oh, I'm sorry. Alder Swanson.
I have a question for the city administrator. How much would it cost us to put up new lighting if they did take down all their gear?
The word 100,000 was thrown around, and at first they might have taken down the tower. We made sure that they retained the tower and the lights. So I don't have an exact figure, but it's going to be a lot.
Okay, thank you.
Alder Tucker-Long.
I have a question on the co-location fee. Is that co-location fee in addition to increasing the rent again? Or?
Thank you, Alder Beth. How the co-location fee works is for qualifying cellular providers, there's that notification process. So on top of the 900, the 250 will apply additionally. However, the annual increase to rent does not apply to the 250. It only applies to the 900.
Okay, and then, because right now, the rent paid is over $2,000 a month.
Correct.
And we're decreasing it because in theory, they're going to have no tenants. But if they start getting tenants back, $1,150 a month is quite a long distance from $2,000 a month. So I'm curious, at what point do we get back to their current rent? And how many tenants? Because it sounded like they had T-Mobile, which is just one tenant before.
Correct. So it would be 3 tenants to get close to it, right? So 750 and 9, maybe 4. But anyway, I don't necessarily know that. We'll have to wait for the agreement to term to readdress that, should that occur where we get a bunch of tenants again. But in the meantime, we have this $900 plus the $250 in front of us. That's really what we have.
Other questions, comments, or motions from the council? Alder Lytle.
So you negotiated this along with the city attorney. It's my understanding that Mr. Kleinmeyer and his firm have experience negotiating these leases with other providers, other entities like this. So in theory, they're aware of what's happening elsewhere with these tenants and
correct
is of the opinion this isn't out of line with where the market is going for these kind of things?
Correct. As part of getting background information, I did ask Wanakee Utilities, who does the leases in Wanakee, And also, as you might know, Attorney Kleinmeyer also works with that community, so I know who to contact. And yes, we're pretty close, we're in line with our rents and things like that. Although I will say Wanakee did not have a tower with no clients on it. They were all right around the $2,000, $2,500 range for their annual or monthly rent.
Alder Swanson.
So to re-clarify that, the towers that do have clients are still at the 2,000-ish range?
Correct, on our water towers, yes.
Right, okay. I don't know, a 50% haircut seems like that's a lot to ask for. I'm not happy with that. Like, I thank you for your effort negotiating, and if Attorney Kleinmeyer says that he thinks it's okay, I guess I'm inclined to go along with his expertise, but this, I mean, that's a lot.
Alder Chacalon.
I feel like when we discussed this at the Parks Committee that it was different. What we had talked about was that it was going to drop down to 900 while they didn't have any clients, which is sort of like a reservation fee, which is better than nothing, which we all agreed. But once they got tenants back, it was supposed to go back to a similar amount. But $1,150 is like, I mean, $900 or so less than what we were getting before for rent with one tenant. And I'm wondering why such a significant discount, and especially if Wanakee's towers with tenants are 2,000 to, or I think you said to 2,500. So it sounds like we're not comparable to Wanakee. We'd be giving them almost a 50% discount over Wanakee.
I guess how I'd respond to that is there's no guarantee any tenants will locate on the tower, or if and when kind of thing. So right now, we're getting rent for virtually nothing with no guarantee of any future tenants.
But I'm not talking about the 900 right now. I'm talking about the co-location fee that we'd be adding when they do get a tenant. Because basically what we're saying is, sure, $900 right now is great. But if they get a tenant, why are we giving them a 50% discount? Or a 48% discount, or whatever it comes out to, when they do have tenants?
I understand what you're saying. This is the proposal that we were given and negotiated. But they actually wanted to do $500 a month rather than the $900 the next week after they gave me the $900. So I don't know what to say other than we're getting money at the moment for nothing on there right now. We have a potential to get $250 per tenant. And I know when you math it out, it's still a lot less than what we were getting, but this is what has been proposed to us.
I guess I'll ask a point of information. What kind of timeline are we under? Is it possible to send this back with the concerns from the council to you and Mr. Kleinmeyer and just keep working on it a little bit and see if there's any wiggle room? And if you come back, we can vote it up or down, or is this the thing that has to be done like this month?
I was under a lot of pressure even today to get it signed.
By whom, I guess?
By the tower person. Yeah, I know. They didn't seem like they had a whole lot of time going out. They do have a number of towers that they're working with.
Okay.
And this is like on a decommission list unless we do X, take the agreement. So at least that's what they told me.
Okay. Alder Humke.
Yeah, so you mentioned that the co-payment for the co-location fee.
Correct.
That we could renegotiate that the next time the contract came up. What does the timeline look like? Like, are we talking a year? Because if the timeline is short, like, let's take the deal and then renegotiate when that time comes. Sure. But if it's like 5 years, I don't think that's in the packet. I was trying to look.
I think the original lease is in the packet.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yep.
I was searching for it.
If I remember correctly. Let's see here.
Is it in the packet? I don't think so.
I'm not seeing.
Is it not?
I'm searching for lease and I don't see it.
Okay. I don't have that lease handy.
Do you have any sense of time frame? I know you don't want to speak
Does
out of-
anyone else have any questions in the meantime? I'm going to try and hunt that lease down real quick. I'm sorry.
Other questions or comments? Alder Weiss and then Alder Swanson.
I guess, like with the, if the alternative is 0 right now, and then let's say that it's empty for a year, then there's a tenant for $250, taking into account the time value of money. I mean, you're looking at several years before, because, and so I guess I'm not as concerned about the getting back to the because of the uncertainty of when they're going to sign. Unless we were to say that they can give us $0 now and then $2,000 when they get a tenant. I mean, is that like, would that be agreeable from our side? Because I think that $900 now and $1,150 when they get a tenant, that seems as reasonable as 0 now and $2,000 when they get a tenant, given the uncertainty of whether there's going to be a tenant there at all. And so I think that getting something for nothing and taking into account the time value of money, I guess I think we're making a bet on whether or not a tenant's going to land there. And if a tenant lands there next month, then we'll all feel like we got hosed and got a raw end of a deal, and Jamie got, Administrator Alec got bamboozled on the negotiation. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think there's a lot of uncertainty here, and it's just a bet of whether taking $900 now for nothing is worth the chance that we're going to feel like we got taken for a ride in 6 months or 8 months or whatever.
Alder Swanson.
Thank you. I was going to ask if Administrator Alec would appreciate if we tabled this and did item 11C and then came back to this when he tracked down the lease.
Mr. Alec?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm still
I move
looking
to
for that lease.
table 11B.
All right. I'm going to just ask for unanimous consent as we research more information. And if no one objects, we can just move on to the next item and we can come back to this one when we have a chance at this meeting. And if we want to refer to another meeting, we can do that when we come back to it at this meeting. So, seeing no one waving their hands or objecting at me, we'll move on to 11C, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the fire chief employment agreement. I know there's a notice to go into closed session. I don't think we need to go into closed session on this. But Mr. Alec.
Thank you, Mayor. Let's see here. Just to kind of set this up, we have an employment agreement and for you today. I was the main negotiator on that. Go figure, right? Mitch was off last week. But anyway, it was a really good back and forth process. What we ended up with was something that was in line both with our pay and benefits package that we have for that type of position, while also retaining our internal equity across positions. We definitely had a high emphasis on that. Had a great background check, cleared with basically flying colors, and anyway, overall was a really good process. And again, as I'll mention, this employment agreement is contingent on appointment by the Police and Fire Commission here this Wednesday. In order to kind of get all the meetings together in sequence, there just so happened to be a PFC meeting this week Wednesday, which they thankfully took this as part of their agenda. But also the candidate themselves, David Hensley, Assistant Chief with the Milwaukee Fire Department is his name. He also had to tie up some personal things in Milwaukee to make sure, like a lease and things like that. So to get some finality on all of this, that's why this week these two meetings here were seeing if you're willing to approve his employment agreement, and on Wednesday, appoint him as fire chief with the PFC.
Yeah, and if I could just add one thing to what Mr. Alec has said, this kind of process is a little bit backwards because ultimately under state statute, the Police and Fire Commission is the one who hires the fire chief. The council and myself cannot hire the fire chief. We do control the budget and other things, so it's kind of an awkward situation where he needs a contract and he needs to know how much he's getting paid and what other benefits he might be getting. But he also needs to officially be hired. So, of course, this contingency is based on the PFC deciding to pick him. He was their finalist, and it's going through the process. So I don't think there is going to be any bumps in the road, but ultimately it's up to the PFC. So if you're wondering why the process is a little bit different, usually with PFC hiring someone and then us extending a contract, it's because of the timeline stuff that Mr. Alec talked about. But just to clarify that for everyone. Alder Humke.
Yeah, could you, Mr. Olick, explain to Alder Hernandez about the process for when we, that we go through once we can decide upon, just so that he understands sort of like how thorough the process is about?
Yes, Alder Hernandez, this was a pretty involved, multi-part process. Basically, it started with obviously getting candidates. I think we had well over 30 candidates for the position. We talked to the PFC. They narrowed that down to 9 or 10. There was a phone screen process that was conducted by Chief McBride, myself, and Mitch, our HR manager. That narrowed it down. We took the narrowed down pool again to the PFC. They did in-person interviews. There was also a staff panel with fire department staff, a public Q&A session. So the candidate was definitely put through their paces as far as the hiring process was concerned. Thought it went really well pretty much all the way along.
And then can you explain the detective process? Because I think that's something unique.
The background check.
Oh,
The background
yeah.
check.
The background check process for department directors and city administrator at Verona is pretty famous. It's intense. One of our detectives is assigned to conduct the background check, and it's pretty much a background check that's done just like law enforcement. And so, just to give you an example, one of the detectives came all the way up to Manitowoc to talk to my wife for about 3 hours about me. So there you go. It's pretty intense. But overall, you get a really good picture of who someone is. It's very thorough. And what I like is when we have someone who's gone through that, we have extremely qualified, and you can trust the person on day one who's coming on staff, which is great.
Yeah, if I could add to that, the police department does a fantastic job doing background checks. Alder Hoeks?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fire chief employment agreement.
Motion by Alder Hoeks. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. And of course, that with the contingency that the PFC actually.
Yeah, contingent on appointment by PFC on Wednesday.
That was part
Yes,
of the
sir.
motion? Awesome.
Yep.
And that was understand. Okay. Motion by Alder Hoeks, second by Alder Humke. Is there motion before the body? Questions or comments on the motion to extend the contract for the fire chief employment agreement? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the fire chief employment agreement with the contingency specified signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And that motion passes. Mr. Alec, are we ready to return to item 11B? If not, we could go to our closed session one that might give you a little more time.
Yes, I've got the signed one in front of me, and I've got the one from the Parks Commission packet, and they both say the same thing, which is it's every 5 years, automatically renewed for another 5 years, which started in 2014. So every 4 and 9 numbered year, that's what we're looking for as far as the term goes. So 2029 is what we would have to live with this fiscal arrangement for.
Alder Swanson, then myself.
So, I mean, napkin math on that is if it takes them a year and a half to get one person, we break even. I think I can live with that.
I had a question for Mr. Alec. Could you clarify the stuff about the lights? So the tower is their tower, and we have lights at Stanfield Field up on them. Is that how it works, or is it something else?
No, they built us the tower.
Okay.
We, as part of the negotiations, are keeping the tower that they had built.
Under the current agreement or the new?
Under this negotiation.
The new agreement.
Yep, what Brian and I, Attorney Kleinmeyer and I are doing as part of the final approval of the city administrator and city attorney. So we're making sure they keep that metal pole there, and also they keep the lights on top of the metal pole.
Under the previous agreement, what would happen if they took down their equipment? Is it we don't know? Or?
It was vague. It was too
Okay.
vague for, I think, both us and them. And so we clarified to make sure that that pole stays along with the lights.
Okay, so you could argue that one of the benefits of the agreement is that we're getting surety that we get to keep the lights up at Stanfield Field.
It's a fair
Okay.
statement.
Okay. Questions, comments, or motions on this item? Alder Hoeks.
Quick question. Because we never invested, we didn't invest any money in putting any of this up when it first went in, right?
Mr. Alec?
I'm not 100% confident, but one of our light poles was removed as part of this. And as is typically they would pay for all the construction of everything.
Sure. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Alder Humke.
Yeah, I move to approve the amendment to ground lease agreement with Array contingent upon final approval by the city attorney and city administrator.
Motion by Alder Helmke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Host. Motion before the body. Questions or comments on the motion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of approving the amendment to the ground lease agreement with the contingency specified signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, no. And that motion passes. With that, we will conclude new business and move on to item 12, old business, which is a discussion and possible action regarding the bond agreement with the town of Verona. This will just basically be an update on what happened at the last negotiating session. And so unless someone wants to say anything in open session, we can convene in closed session to talk about our negotiated positions, if someone would like to make the motion. Alder Humke.
Do I just read this, right?
Yes.
The common council may convene.
Well, you have to make the motion
Oh, I make a motion
first.
to convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.85, parent 1, parent E, for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating with purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. Common council may reconvene in open session and take action on the closed session item.
Motion by Alder Humke. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Alder Swanson. This is, of course, a roll call vote. If Mr. Alec would be so kind as to read the roll.
Humke.
Aye.
Weiss.
Aye.
Lytle.
Aye.
Tucker Long.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Aye.
Swanson.
Aye.
Hoaxed.
Aye.
Harrison.
Aye.
8-0, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we will convene in closed session in the large conference room. All right, what do you think? Are we? Okay, it is 9:15 and we are back in open session. Council members were updated on the state of the boundary agreement negotiations with the town of Verona. So unless anyone has anything else to say, I will move on to item 13, which is adjournment.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Alder Hoax. Is there a second? Seconded by Alder Humke. All those in favor of adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we're adjourned at 9:16 p.m. Thank you, everyone.